Hello, and you are, of course, watching the live broadcast from the Sydney International Piano Competition 2023. And joining me now is another semi-finalist, and that is Wynona Yinuo Wang, who has just performed for us in the last few days, the first part of her semi-finals. Thanks so much for finding some time to talk to me, Wynona.
Thank you for having me here.
You're most welcome. So, how are you finding Sydney? Have you been to Australia before?
No, this is my first time to be in the Southern Hemisphere. First time in Australia, first time in Sydney. Great city.
Wow, that's good to hear. Yeah. And so, have you had a little bit of time to have a look around? I mean, how are the restaurants? The important
That's
things.
always the first thing that pianists always look for, because we're all foodies.
Yeah. Well, pianists and all musicians, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, the hotel is right on the edge of the Chinatown, so I've been exploring a lot of Chinese restaurant around because I'm from Beijing originally. So there are many original like Chinese chain hot pot place, which is always my favorite place to go for comfort food. So
that's good, isn't it? It's good, isn't it? It's amazing how good you feel when you actually are able to eat something you know. Right?
Exactly, and also the Chinese restaurant around in Sydney are so authentic. Like you actually feel like you're in China.
Oh, that's lovely. Hey, that's great. That's very, very nice. Yeah. But of course, you're here to play and perform and to be part of a competition. Just remember that bit as well. So you started off, of course, with Rachmaninoff, Liszt, and a rather interesting Australian piece. Is that your first encounter with an Australian composer and musician?
Yes, actually. Well, of course, we all heard of Percy Granger's music, but unfortunately, he's in the 20th century, and in the Sydney competition, we're supposed to play the 21st century works. So actually, when I was applying for this competition, or before I even started applying, I was doing some research. I was looking on the website, and I saw this wonderful composer. Her name is Aristea Mellos. She's really amazing. And then the first time, well, there are some like sample tracks on the website of her works, and I immediately fell in love with her work. And at that time, I wasn't even thinking of applying for Sydney competition yet. I was still in consideration, but I was like, "Wow, this work is amazing! I'm gonna just look her up, and then just gonna put her work on my regular concert program. Like not only in the competition, but regularly when I play a concert, it's gonna be in my program." So yeah, that's how I encountered her.
That's fantastic, and what a compliment to Aristea. Yeah, that's really, really nice and good. What a coincidence that you found her at the
centre. And she's such a nice person. Yeah, I met her here in Sydney, and she's been very supportive.
Well, that's good, yes. And I mean, it must be wonderful for her also to have someone like yourself premiering her work, you know? So it's great.
It's very nice.
You've moved into the semi-finals, so congratulations on that. Yeah. And there it was Beethoven, Janacek, Ravel, and Rachmaninoff. Tell us about the design of that program. That's quite an unusual program, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Beethoven happened in the preliminary round.
Right. Oh, excuse me. Yeah.
And in this semifinal round, this recital was contains a sonata by Janacek called "From the Street."
It's very interesting music, isn't it?
Yeah, it has a very different flavor than the regular music that we listen to, and I think the language that he chose to use in music is so. It's so appealing. It has a lot of imaginations that we don't have in the regular repertoire.
What to do with the rhythms? The unusual rhythms that they're unusual for us, so it's quite a challenge. But also the colours and the harmony and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, and also the texture of it, like the sudden change of mood and texture.
That's right, actually.
And there's always a percussive kind of texture that shows the struggle, and which like we just don't normally see it in the other repertoire. And I think in this whole program, it's designed to be about a memorial to other people and also composers. Well, it's a little bit heavy topic, but composers' imagination or their perspective towards death. Actually, Janacek composed this sonata after the death of a worker who passed away during these demonstrations in support for a university in Brno. So he shows the struggles and outcries of the souls in this work, and he disapproved with what happened to this worker, and he really expressed all the feelings towards this social crisis. So while this is the music that was born in crisis, and also the second piece on the program, the Ravel,
yes,
the Tombeau de Couperin, is such amazing, beautiful work. But he dedicated each movement to a friend or a relative of him who passed away in the war. So I think it's very interesting to put those two works together because it shows completely different perspective of how composers perceive the idea of, in memory of other people. Ravel, because this piece is also an homage to Baroque composer Couperin.
Indeed.
This whole style is in the Baroque dance style, and it's very elegant and reserved, beautiful. It has a taste of melancholy, but it's never like going that way like Janacek.
Right.
So I think it's very interesting to put two composers together, and in different ways we. Like Ravel is more like a celebration of life, and Janacek is like.
Yeah.
A kind of
living in different times, of course, as well.
Yeah.
What about Rachmaninoff? How does he fit into all of this?
This work, first of all, is in D minor, so
Right.
that's the key of death.
It did. Yes.
Yeah.
Well.
Well, I was afraid of talking to the audience about this because it's too much. It's too much to fit in the recital program. But he did include the I forgot how it's called, Dies Irae, the Gregorian,
exactly.
that chant in this music in the third movement a lot. So it's really heavy, and he started composing this work based on the idea of Faust. So there's always life and death kind of struggles in this work. But this work, the reason why I picked this is that this is such a underrated work. Basically, nobody played. Of course, this is a very difficult sonata to play. According to Rachmaninoff himself, he was afraid. He explained it to his friends that he was afraid that nobody would want to play this piece because it's so long and so difficult
and dark. Yes.
Yeah, and it's about 40 minutes long. It's really heavy, and it needs so much mental capacity and physical capacity to perform. So maybe that's the reason why. But on the other hand, this work is different from the normal Rachmaninoff pieces that has like this huge sweep and like long melody, and this one is more motivic because he started composing this work based on the idea of Faust. So it's very programmatic, and it has this motive that happens in the beginning of the first movement, and it's not even a melody; it's just a motive, and then you can see that in the third movement as a callback to it. So it's a very amazing work, but I guess because of the challenge of it, people don't usually play it. But I feel like it's starting to get people's attention because in this competition, not only me, there is also another pianist who presented this work. So I'm happy about that.
Yes, of course, and it's funny sometimes certain works come into fashion, or you get the feeling that the artists, the musicians are ready to play this piece, and beforehand they weren't really, or they just didn't.
It hasn't been discovered yet.
Or it wasn't there. How do you find jumping from say Janacek to Ravel to Rachmaninoff, to jump to these three different worlds that these composers present? It must be quite difficult.
Well, I mean, if I know the idea of each work well, then the jumping around wouldn't be so difficult because before I play the piece, I know what kind of zone I need to enter. And also I think talking to the audience helped. It gave me time, and it gave me time to set up into this new kind of zone to present another work. But of course, each work has different language, and then I need to enter that kind of, I need to access that zone in order to present them well.
Yeah. We're moving now, of course, to the chamber music section. I guess chamber music's an important part of your life.
Yes.
Tell us what works you're going to be playing here.
I'll be playing the Strauss Violin Sonata.
All right, it's an unusual one, isn't it? Yes. Did you know that work before?
Not really. I learned that sonata for this competition because, well, both for the violinist and for the pianist, they always complain about this work. I mean, it's such a great piece, but because the difficulty and ensemble difficulty and also the difficulties in terms of each part, it's just people don't really put commitment time on learning it because it requires so much. But I'm glad that I put this piece for this competition so that I get to know how great this work is.
Yeah, because it is, like you say, it's a work that's not actually performed very often, you know, and quite possibly that's the reason, you know. So good on you. Great for taking on something there and introducing it to all of us a little bit more. Yeah, we get a chance to hear it.
Looking forward.
If you make it to the final, you want to come back again to both Beethoven and Rachmaninoff, right?
Yes.
So tell us about those two works. Beethoven 1, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, which was composed after the second concerto.
Which is weird. Exactly. Good to know, though. Yes.
Well, I think it's very interesting I have so many Sonata number 1, Concerto number 1 on my program. It's
So you just went through the first thing that came, opened it up and started it. Of course. Yes.
To look at the young composer. And also for the Strauss, it was composed when he was really young. So I think it's interesting.
It's interesting to see where they were and where they went then, isn't it? You know?
Exactly.
It's like you accompany these people through their lives, these amazing artists as they progress. And very, very interesting. You're, of course, at the Juilliard now. How's living in New York and Juilliard?
I love New York. I mean, I didn't love New York in the beginning.
Okay, so
but I was
tough city, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was a little bit too overwhelming, and people are always busy and they're always working. Like if you go to the airport and from another city, always people who are waiting for the flight that goes to New York, they are always working.
Yeah.
Like they're never chilling. Like even when they're waiting for their flights, they're like calling and writing emails. So that was my first impression of New York. It's just everyone is working very hard and it's just a very fast city. But then I was stuck there during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't go back to my hometown. And
that's tough, isn't it?
And New York almost went empty during that time.
Yeah.
But I had nowhere to go, so I stayed in New York. And my daily hobby was to go to the Hudson River at 3 a.m. because it was completely empty. And then through that time, I kind of saw the other side of New York, the silent part, and you know, it's a calming city. It has another side, which I enjoyed a lot. So even after the pandemic, when people moved back to New York, I feel like I understand the city deeper than before.
Wow.
And then that's when I started to fall in love.
How was performing for yourself, not performing, you know, for public during that time, practicing, in other words, during the pandemic? Did you get a lot done, or was it difficult to keep going?
No, I wonder if people practice during the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's funny that like we would think that, oh, if I have nothing else to do, I'm just in my apartment whole day, I must be practicing a lot. But no, I don't think anyone was practicing. Well, there are probably other musicians that are working hard, but people around me, nobody was practicing.
Well, of course, music's about communicating, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and if you're playing for yourself, it's not quite the same, is it?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. We, of course, are, after the pandemic, much busier with live broadcasts and streaming, and this is, of course, the case with this competition this year. Who's watching you and cheering you on from around the world?
Of course, my family.
Right. They're in Beijing, yeah?
Yes. Usually when I perform in the States, and if there is a live stream, it's always midnight for them. Or like very early morning for them. If I play a 7:30 recital, it's either 7:30 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning for them. Or like even earlier. if
That's true love, isn't it? Getting up earlier than 6:30 in the morning to hear your daughter perform.
Or sometimes if I perform on the Sunday afternoon, then they would get up in the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. to watch me perform,
That's
which
nice,
is very
isn't it?
supportive of them.
Yeah.
But I feel so lucky that I'm here and there's only 2 hours of time difference. They could always catch my performance during daytime or like early evening, which is amazing.
Terrific. Yeah. Wynona, what do you think the role of a musician is in today's world?
Wow. That's a heavy topic. I mean, I think the role of a musician, of course, we can't do any specific work, you know, like doctors that they could cure disease. We can't really help anything like that, or we can't help the world. We can't invent AI through our music. We can't do any practical stuff, but I think what's very important is that we communicate with people's emotions and feelings. You know, like music is such a great carrier. Like I cannot, for example, if you look at a painting, unless it's very abstract painting, you can usually tell what this painting is about. If it's an apple, then it's an apple. But in the music, you can never describe an apple. But what's very inspiring in music is that we could all communicate through music about how we feel, how we express the feelings. And then I think that's the beauty of being a performer, how on the stage I could feel that I'm connected with each audience member who are sitting down the stage. And then I think, what was I gonna say? It'll come back to me.
Well, you were talking about connecting with the audience, and of course, it is a different type of medicine. If you're not a doctor, you're basically performing. And I didn't say that. Zubin Mehta said that to me. So I thought that was rather nice, actually. A nice way of saying, you know, maybe I didn't become a doctor, but I became a different sort of doctor. I gave other sort of medicine in some ways. So, oh, it's lovely. Listen, all the very best for your progression through this competition. If you get through to the finals, well done. And it's already wonderful that you've made it to the semi-finals. And it's been lovely talking to you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
all the
having
very
me.
best. And that was Wynona Yinuo Wang speaking to me there. This is the live broadcast coming from the Sydney International Piano Competition 2023.